Hi, my name is Ashley Pierce, and I am a creative photographer based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've recently started offering education services to fellow photographers, and I started this series in the hopes to help newbie photographers learn the steps that go into starting a photography business in the actual order that you need to do them in. Because doing my research back in the past when I was starting this myself, I found all the resources in all the wrong orders, and oftentimes the resources were missing very important information that I needed to know. So after being completely self-taught, making a lot of mistakes, I decided to make this series to keep things simple to help people like me back then not pull their hair out in the process of starting their business. So my next lesson is on SEO. This video is going to go over the most important things you need to know about SEO when it comes to being a photographer, and then I will have an additional video that goes into more of the nitty-gritty components that you need to know if you're wanting to get super serious about SEO with your company. And you can watch that by subscribing to my personal Patreon, and the link will be down below this video. So to start with, in case you don't know what SEO is, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Basically, that's just a fancy word for can people find you on Google, because most people Google, but Bing and other search engines like that. It's very important for businesses to establish a strong online presence, especially at the very beginning, because SEO is very slow. It takes a long time for you to establish your website and for Google or whatever other search engine to accept you as an established business, so that they will rank you high and ultimately show you to people who are searching for keywords in your industry. SEO basically improves your visibility to attract more potential clients. And I'd like to go more into what I meant by it takes a long time to build it up. So it does take a long time to build up your SEO, but once you do, it is very difficult for your competitors to catch up to you. So it's a long con type thing. I started my website way before I actually started offering professional services, and I think that was a super smart way to go about it, and that is why this is so early on in the list of things to do to start a photography business in this series. So I could have talked about branding or some other topic now, and you technically could have done that before working on your SEO, but because of that long duration of time that it takes to build it up, I wanted you to go ahead and at least get the bare minimum established, so that when you start actually offering services down the line, Google will already recognize you and at least place you on the first couple of pages on the search for your keywords. And so, next point, most people Google when searching for services. So I know majority of people nowadays have social media, and I think that social media has a great part to play when it comes to photography, especially because it's a visual app. It's all about videos and photos, and as photographers, we want people to see those visuals. So it is great. It's like a kind of a pseudo portfolio. I think you should have a portfolio, but it's also a great way to showcase your work. But it's not very searchable. They're working on it. I know that hashtags have now become more like a way to search instead of just a way to click a thing and then scroll endlessly through pictures. And they're working on some other ways to sort images. But for the most part, if you are looking on Instagram, unless it is randomly popping up in your algorithm, you're probably not seeing or you're not scratching the surface of all the services that you could find on that app. Same thing with Facebook. I think Facebook's a lot better at being searchable, but it's still lacking. Google is the king of search terms. So you really want to get your website's search words established and be intentional with those so that when people Google, they find you. Me personally, anytime I'm going to spend a large amount of money, I do my research and I start with Google. If I ever have a question about something, I Google it. Google is, I think, the #1 place you should focus your efforts when it comes to getting your services out there, and then you can use social media to complement that. Next point, it helps. So building up your SEO goes hand in hand with building up your domain ranking. So when you start your business, you have to establish a domain. The domain is basically your website address. That domain has to build up a history, basically. It's like kind of like a credit score, but for your website. And the better your SEO is, a lot of times the better your domain ranking is. So like when I first started my company, my domain ranking was a 1. Now it's a 14. And every time I check it, it seems to be going up and up and up because I'm doing all the necessary steps to build up my SEO. And it's taken a long time, like 5 years, but over time it's getting higher and higher and higher. And that is ultimately placing me higher and higher and higher on search results. It's also, your domain ranking is, let me tell you what they say it is. It's the measure of your website's authority and relevance. So, like I said, kind of like a credit score, but for a website. So yeah, that is what SEO is important for when it comes to photography businesses. There are so many resources online that you can find for photography specifically to build up your SEO, but I am going to touch on the most important one, in my opinion, that you should focus on for your website, and that is blogging. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you look anything up, whether that be a DIY project or a recipe or just any kind of question, like you're like, how many turtles are there in the sea? Whatever. If you look it up, most of the time you're going to pull up a blog post or an article that you read through that answers your question. And that is because blog posts are where most people place their keywords to get you onto their website. And every time someone goes to your blog post, it tells Google, oh, this is a trusted business. People are going to this person's business to learn from them. And so Google will kind of like notate that on the back end somehow in their algorithm, and that's how you start to establish your SEO. So blog. I would say blog at least once a week, and you can blog about so many things as a photographer. The main thing that photographers blog about is their actual sessions, but when you're first starting out, you might not have sessions. So instead, you could blog about, hey guys, I'm starting a photography business in this city. That city is a keyword. And then let me backtrack a little bit. If you want to know what your search terms should be, the best way to go about that is to go on Google and search. Let's say you live in Austin, Texas, and you are a newborn photographer. I would just look up newborn photographers in Austin, Texas, and see what pops up on the first page. And there'll be different sections. There'll be like the main title of someone's website, and then there'll be like a little blurb underneath with various keywords. And I would read through all those keywords and see if you see a pattern, and then write them down. That is the free way to find search terms. There's also different services. I can link a couple below. Personally, I didn't use them. I actually hired a company to do some of my SEO for me that I wasn't able to do on my own, and they helped me figure out what my search terms would be with their own subscriptions to websites like the ones I'll link. So they can be very beneficial. They are a little bit expensive. So start with just Googling and writing down the search terms. They're also pretty obvious. So like if you were looking for a photographer in Austin, Texas, what would you search? And write those down. It could be in multiple different orders. It could be Austin, Texas, newborn photographer in Austin, Texas, baby portraits in Austin. There's all kinds of different combinations and synonyms for different words that you can use to place into your blogs so that people can find you. The only thing I will say about that is to be very careful about overusing keywords, because Google will recognize that as like spam. So it's called keyword stuffing. You don't want to use like, hi, I'm a Austin newborn photographer and I'm currently taking newborn photos of Austin residents. You don't want multiple. Google is very smart. So if you use it once, Google understands what search terms are important in that blog, because Google's established and it has all kinds of algorithms to figure that out. So I wouldn't worry too much about placing the keywords multiple times. Instead, I would try to get a variety of keywords in that blog. And you want your blogs, from what I hear, to be more than 500 words. I know that can be difficult to write, but I do think it's worth the time that you put into it. Okay, so that is my take on the importance of SEO for photographers, and a little bit of tips for you to start with. If you want to take a deep dive into SEO and learn all the things that I've learned along the way, you can subscribe to my Patreon account. There is a link to do that down below. It's only $10 a month, and you have access to every single video in this series that I have created so far. So definitely consider it, but no pressure at all. I will continue making this free YouTube series where I will always touch on the most important things that I think you should learn about how to start a business.